You are watching KSL-5. This is Eyewitness News at 10.
It came without warning. A tornado touching down in the heart of Salt Lake City. It lasted only a few minutes, but sent debris flying everywhere. And when it was over, the damage and destruction left behind still seemed unreal.
The cleanup has already begun. This live camera shot shows what's left of a convention setup across from the Delta Center in downtown Salt Lake City. Crews will be working there all night, but oh, what a day it has been.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ruth Todd.
And I'm Dick Norris.
There's a tornado coming our way, dude.
It came in from the west, suddenly, without warning, touching down somewhere on West 2nd South. At 500 West and 1st South, its destructive force was in full gear, leaving this club in shambles. From there, it moved east along 1st South toward the Delta Center. This home video, taken from the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, shows what happened as it approached, a direct hit. Then continuing on between the Wyndham Hotel and the Triad Center. Veering northeast now, it heads straight for the heart of the city. It wiped out a tent set up for an outdoor retailers convention. More home video from inside a car shows you what it was like as it passed over North Temple. Debris flying everywhere. A direct hit on Temple Square and the Assembly Hall under construction. Then moving on into the avenues and beyond, ripping off roofs, leaving dozens of homes uninhabitable.
The streets of Salt Lake City tonight are still under a voluntary evacuation order. Teams have spent much of the night working to clean up debris and find all the victims. News specialist Nadine Wimmer joins us now live. Is everybody accounted for, Deanie?
Ruth, teams tell us tonight that yes, they believe they have found all the victims, but the cleanup efforts down there will continue well through tonight. The tornado hit with a power most had never seen, and few will soon forget.
Roll the window.
The sheer force of the storm left people running for cover in every direction.
So we ran across the street and just grabbed a tree, and my legs were in the air at one point. I was just holding on as hard as I could.
I didn't have time to get inside. I kind of dove in the corner back here. I was out on the patio, and the roof came down on me.
Minutes later, the destruction was evident. One man died, 49 others were rushed to nearby hospitals. Some were so critical they were treated on the streets. The tornado blew apart buildings, blew out windows, and literally ripped trees from the ground. Governor Leavitt declared a state of emergency.
Hard to imagine that nature could have selected a more direct line at a more devastating moment.
One of the areas hardest hit, the giant tent city constructed to host an international outdoor retailers convention.
Walk out right now!
Once searchers found the victims and teams assessed the damage, organizers decided to keep the convention and just delay the starting date one day.
The good news is that we've been meeting with the outdoor retailers. They are going forward with the show.
Cleanup is now well underway for the 120 homes damaged by the storm. Despite the staggering toll, city leaders tonight are breathing a sigh of relief.
This has really, in many ways, been a miracle that we have been extremely lucky. This could have been so much worse.
It could have been much worse, but tonight there are 34 families without homes. Most of them, if not all, are staying with families. City leaders had told us they had hoped everyone would have power tonight. We are told that there are still several hundred homes that are left without power tonight. Hopefully that will be restored by the morning. And there will be some streets that are closed for a few days, but the overall city evacuation order will be lifted at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Ruth, Dick?
All right, Deanie. Half a giant crane being used to build the LDS Church's new assembly hall snapped like a stick in the raging wind today. Watch the crane on the right as it ruptures and falls, landing on top of the partially finished building. It came to rest just swinging first, then hanging by a single cable. The assembly hall itself sustained substantial damage, and of the 800 people working at this site, there were only 2 injuries, but neither is considered serious. The storm moved through Salt Lake's avenues, tearing up trees, blowing out windows, and in some cases destroying homes. News specialist Richard Pyatt surveyed that damage.
It all happened in a matter of seconds. A home destroyed by a freak storm. Years of memories literally gone with the wind.
The emotions are really high. It's hard because I grew up in the house. And it's just hard to see that all your memories are gone now.
It's just hard to see this happen. It was a beautiful home.
This longtime home of Lamar Smith and his family is among those that took the brunt of Salt Lake's twister. Amazingly, just a few feet away, damage was minimal. From the air, it's easy to see the extent of the damage and the path of the storm. The damage almost seems random. The storm hopscotched its way northeast and into the foothills. On the ground, trees and debris seem to be everywhere, blown, uprooted, ripped apart. This pine tree is just one of dozens of trees that was damaged in this storm, but it probably serves as the clearest example of the power of the storm. Look at how the base of it has just been twisted away from its roots. The funny thing about it is, nobody can tell exactly where this thing came from. Chainsaws are sounds of comfort to those whose yards are full of old trees, and there are a lot of both tonight. Richard Pyatt, Eyewitness News.
Federal, state, and local emergency crews converged in the downtown area just moments after the storm hit. The strong winds and flying debris injured more than 50 people in the tornado's path. News specialist Stacy Butler joins us now live from LDS Hospital to update us on the people hurt by today's twister. Stacy.
Ruth, the staff at area hospitals brace for the worst today. Now, a code green was called, and that means all medical personnel were on alert. Dozens of physicians, nurses, and other emergency personnel stood at emergency room entrances, ready with stretchers. A triage was set up to treat hundreds of victims. In the end, only a handful came. Most patients at Valley hospitals were treated for cuts and broken bones from falling debris. Now, there was only one fatality. Las Vegas resident Alan Crandy was setting up booze inside a tent for tomorrow's outdoor expo when the storm hit. He was crushed by metal supporters. Here's a rundown of some other injuries. Salt Lake Regional Medical Center saw the most victims at 22. All are listed in stable condition. 15 were transported to LDS Hospital. 5 were trauma victims and 3 remain in serious condition. Now, 12 people were admitted to the University of Utah Medical Center and 2 are listed in serious condition. Now, just about everyone who saw the damage done today agrees that considering the velocity and the power of this twister, we're all lucky that a lot more people weren't injured. Reporting live from LDS Hospital, I'm Stacy Butler for Eyewitness News.
Very lucky. Thanks, Stacy. Now to the expert for an explanation, but this one even blew the weatherman away, didn't it, Lynn?
This was an amazing event, Richard. No question about it. We're calling it Bomb Genesis, and I'll be describing as we go through this half hour of news and weather information on the storm. The scene this morning at 20 minutes to 12 was this. Cloudy over the valley, few showers on the west side with, some thunderstorms developing not too far from Tooele. Now, as the scenario developed and started to reveal everything, 2 cells, one to the north of Interstate 80, one to the south with showers and thunderstorms over Tooele. Now, that was at noon. Now, watch what happens over the next few minutes before we get to 1 o'clock and when the tornado hits. Moves across the Salt Lake Valley and then slams dead center right into Salt Lake City at about 12:50 or 12:55. Still working all those fine numbers out, but that's when the tornado hit, and it was a huge tornado, the biggest in the history of the state of Utah for weather history. A big storm. It was not an F0. It was not an F1. These are the tornado categories. It was an F2 with winds between 113 and 157 miles per hour. Those F5s, that's what hit in Oklahoma City earlier this year. All right, how did this develop so quickly? And we had a severe thunderstorm warning out minutes before it happened from the National Weather Service. But I'll show you and explain bomb genesis coming up along with the weather forecast in just a bit, Ruth.
All right, Lynn, we'll talk to you in just a few minutes. Of course, there are hours and hours of hard work ahead that will certainly stretch into weeks, but the cleanup started almost as soon as the storm disappeared. News specialist Jed Bowl is live with that part of the story. Jed.
Ruth, it's amazing to see the amount of progress made in the cleanup in just 9 hours. Many of these roads are ready to reopen. And as soon as the emergency crews had rushed the victims out of this area, the cleanup started, and the governor got the wheels rolling for federal money.
I am declaring a state of emergency in the state of Utah. That will free up federal resources.
With that statement, the governor cleared the way for plenty of help to clean up Utah's most devastating storm. As the director of the Federal Emergency Management Administration pledged FEMA support to the governor, the people of Salt Lake were already pitching in to clean up. Crews with chainsaws tackled massive trees. Teams helped clear away branches, and Utah Power struggled to get everyone back online. They're being very careful to restore power to circuits with known damage, and will have to take a lot of time.
The damage is quite extensive. Many trees and wires down in backyards. We want to make sure that we're not endangering the public safety.
They expect to have all of the main circuitry back at full operation within 20 hours, but it may take longer for some individual homes where the wires were ripped right off the house. At the Delta Center, they started the process of mending the broken panes of glass blown out by the storm. But as he viewed the widespread damage from the air, the governor said that he was already starting to see great progress.
In every home that I passed, I saw not a few, but dozens of neighbors in the homes working to clean up. The streets are already being cleared.
Right now, the fire department is assessing the damage inside the torn tent of the outdoor show. Now, they'll tell the vendors which booths are totaled and which of them can patch up and carry on. Reporting live, Jed Bowl. Now back to you.
All right, Jed, thanks. He's reporting from 3rd West and South Temple. The storm may be over, but there is definitely a lot of work still ahead.
That's right, and it's already underway. We go now to news specialist Karen Scullen, who's been trying to sort through what happens now with a downtown in such a mess. Karen.
Well, that's right. I think many people at this point are asking what now. Well, I can tell you there's some good news when it comes to insurance if you own a home or a vehicle. But if you're going to be traveling in downtown Salt Lake City, some not so good news. It's going to be pretty tricky for a while.
The damage to many homes is devastating. For many, it's hard to even look at a home torn in pieces. But insurance agents advise those affected to take a close look and prevent any further damage if possible.
If you have a hole in your roof and it's raining, if you can reasonably go and cover that hole to prevent further damage, that's what we would ask them to try and do.
Mydell says call your agent tonight or tomorrow, but don't worry too much. He says the majority of homeowners' policies will cover tornado damage. And if you're one of the many who had a vehicle crushed by the twister, it will probably be covered by comprehensive insurance, so it shouldn't affect your premiums. Now, if you haven't had a home or car damaged but are still waiting for power, Utah Power knows where the outages are, and crews are working hard on repairs. Phone service is in the process of being restored as well, with only spotty service outages still remaining. US West asks that you limit your phone use tonight to only necessary calls. Speaking of necessary, if it's not necessary to go downtown, don't.
300 west to 6 north, then you can get on the freeway.
At this point, many people are being detoured as many of the major streets are blocked while cleanup continues. Salt Lake City police say their intention is to have the roads open by morning.
But unfortunately, that is not going to happen. There are some road closures to tell you about. North Temple between 300 West all the way to State Street. That'll be closed for 2 to 3 days, I'm told by Salt Lake City Police. That is because of the crane that was damaged by the twister. It's hanging there, creating a very dangerous situation. So you're not going to be allowed to travel in that area. Now on South Temple between 200 and 300 West, that'll be closed tomorrow. That's there in front of the Wyndham Hotel. Obviously some damage there while they clean up. You will not be allowed to travel there on South Temple. Also some power outages to fill you in on. Now I'm told by Salt Lake City Police that between 16th and 18th Avenue, and that's between 6th and 8th East, they'll be without power through tomorrow. But Utah Power recently updated me on that. Although there are several hundred people still without power, they say they hope to restore power to everyone by tomorrow morning. If you do not have power by tomorrow morning, I was just given a phone number. You need to call 888-221-7070. That's if you don't have power by tomorrow morning. Again, that number, 888-221-7070. And also, if you work in the downtown area, probably a good idea to call ahead to your business to find out if they're open. It's kind of unclear which businesses at this point will be open tomorrow morning, so a good idea to call ahead. Reporting live, I'm Karen Scullen. Back to you.
All right, Karen, lots of good information. Thanks so much. Now, for those of you who still have some questions, emergency personnel have set up a special hotline for you, and that number here on your screen, 533-0533, emergency personnel on hand. You must be patient. As you might expect, it's been very, very busy, so keep trying that number. We have much more coverage coming up after this newscast on a special half-hour program, Eyewitness to a Tornado. So stay with us. That's coming up at 10:35.
And there is much more news on this very busy day, including the latest on yesterday's shooting at the Jewish Community Center in Los Angeles, the suspect and his motives, when Eyewitness News returns. And Len will be here to show us what the forecast looks like. Anything's better after what happened today. First a commercial and this weather almanac. The suspect in yesterday's shooting at the Los Angeles Jewish Community Center turned himself in today and is on his way back to L.A. tonight to face charges. Buford Furrow walked into the FBI office in Las Vegas after taking a taxi cab from L.A. Furrow confessed to the shooting in California, saying it was a wake-up call to America to kill Jews. He has already been charged with killing a postal worker and faces state charges in connection with the center shooting. A 5-year-old boy is still in critical condition. The others are in fair to good condition.
A $5,000 reward is being offered to help capture the killer of a University of Utah student. Amy Quinton was stabbed to death last week in her apartment on 8th East. Another woman was also wounded. Police have been following dozens of leads, but so far have no suspects. The reward is being offered in hopes of jogging anybody's memory who may know something about this crime.
Bountiful police are investigating an accident after a truck ended up within feet of a playground. Officers say the truck driver misjudged a turn at the bottom of a steep hill on Orchard Lane and crashed through the Orchard Lane apartments into 2 cars and finally came to rest in an elementary school playing field. It's the 4th time in 2 years police say someone has misjudged that turn.
The site where crews are working to clean up the outdoor retailers' convention tents will become the center stage for Olympic medal ceremonies in 2002. The LDS Church and the Salt Lake Olympic Committee made the announcement today. The church owns the property known as Block 85 just east of the Trias Center. A facility will be constructed on the site. The church has announced it will contribute to the development using profits from church-owned businesses.
Meanwhile, back to that parking lot and the rest of the swath of a tornado today and what it was all about. Len.
Thanks, Dick. Thanks, Ruth. We want to show you the beginnings. This is the storm, the tornado, the F2, the biggest tornado ever to hit in Utah. That storm taken, these are pictures taken by Dan Nestel and JT Taylor with Video West today. You can see it moving on down. Yeah, that was about 5 or 10 minutes before 1 o'clock. Now, that was the beginning of the storm as it was dropping from the parent cloud. How did that develop so quickly when really only 20 minutes before it was cloudy with a few showers around? Well, we have some thoughts on that. Here comes a bit of an explanation for you. We're going to look at that here in just a bit, but let me tell you that storm really hit with a vengeance. It just plowed across, and we're looking at some more home video here as we see transformers, we see lines arcing and sparking across one another, power station. Now, this is what that tremendous wind force can do, throwing everything across the road this way, and the car almost turns over. Then as the tornado goes by, the winds come around the other side like a hurricane, and everything leans back to the south. So first to the north, then to the south. That vehicle and this fellow taking the video, very, very lucky to have even survived that. Now here's the explanation. I'm calling it bomb genesis. Things can happen in nature with explosive force and fury when they come together. Storm center over at Salt Lake. This one south of Tooele. A little piece breaks off, goes over the Oakers. Now, the cold air rushing out of those major storms converge under that one. It would normally be just an afternoon thunderstorm. Built it and shot it through the roof more than it would ever go by itself, and a tornado was generated right over Salt Lake City. Last time this happened was back in August 14th of '68. Now, there was at noon, storm cell to the south. There's the one north of I-80 showing you the graphic. Now, this is the real stuff. It moves across, moves across, moves across, and boom, 1250 right into Salt Lake, and that track continues. And then there was a band to the south with severe thunderstorms moving across Sandy. There were funnel clouds up around, I got to tell you about the path. Now, as the tornado moves, it doesn't just stay on the ground and move in a straight line. It moves from side to side. It yo-yos like that one, up and down, and then it can tilt. It can tilt to the left, it can tilt to the right, forward or back, it just doesn't matter. Looking at more pictures of the damage. Now, this is up on our roof. We lost all our weather equipment. Now, whether it was debris that hit it or the tornadic winds ripped apart our anemometer, that measures our wind speed. Our wind vane I have no clue where the wind vane ended up. It is totally gone. So, yes, some of the damage on our rooftop. Selected cities, Logan between 1/4 and 1/2 inch of rain, Ogden up close to 1/2. Salt Lake City, we had 2/10, only 79 for a high today. We hit that just before the tornado struck. Now the lightning, this is just over the last 3 hours. That's quite a strong batch, and that's why we had some severe thunderstorms north of Ogden. And then there's more that are moving through the basin in the Book Cliffs headed for Colorado. So our night is quieting down. And we're going to go partly cloudy for the balance of tonight, except for those notable exceptions. And then tomorrow, too much moisture around. Yep, we'll get clouds building, probably a few showers. We'll all be a little bit shaky tomorrow, but there'll just be some showers, okay? And then the 5-day forecast. 100-degree weather comes back for St. George Friday and Saturday. And then here's our northern 5-day forecast. 86 tomorrow. Plenty of clouds around, maybe a little sprinkle or two, but that would be it. And then 90s for the weekend. Coming up in our 10:30 special. Boy, do I have some information on tornadoes for you.
Great.
Yeah, where do you see it? Okay.
Good.
Talk to you in a few. Well, the tornado affects sports as well. Lots of things changed, venues moved, whatever.
Things are moving around. And coming up in sports, Scott Layton's first day as a Knick. We'll talk about that. Jamal Anderson finally reports to camp. And yes, the Stars are looking for a new place to play.
We're not sure the total extent. What we do know is that there's been significant damage done to the roof.
It's been a pretty tough week for Larry Miller. Yesterday, the Jazz organization took a hit when one of the main architects of the team, Scott Layton, resigned. Today, it was the home of the Jazz that got blasted. Right now, all the events scheduled for the Delta Center are on hold. Today's tornado went right over the arena. The outside of the Delta Center was damaged by flying debris, pieces of wood sticking right into the outer walls of the building. Windows were blown out on the southwest side of the arena. Cars that were parked near the main security entrance, they were hit by falling glass. The big question now is if the structure is stable.
You know, we're not sure as far as if there's any structural damage or anything of that nature, but as far as we can tell right now, we're just doing an assessment to try to secure the premise, try to make it a little bit safer for crews to walk through it.
The Stars were scheduled to play Phoenix on Friday. That game has been moved to the D Event Center, and on Monday the Stars will play the LA Sparks. That game will also be at the D Event Center up in Ogden. Today, Scott Layton was introduced as the new general manager of the New York Knicks. Layton reportedly receiving a 4-year deal worth $6 million. After 18 years with Utah, Layton is looking forward to a new challenge.
When you're working someplace for so long, 18 years, almost half my life, it's hard to make a change that dramatic, but it just seemed like a wonderful opportunity to come to this city and to work for a premier organization. I really feel very fortunate and honored to be given this opportunity.
Former Ute Jamal Anderson finally came to terms with the Falcons after missing nearly 2 weeks of training camp. The Dirty Bird is back in the flock. The deal is for $32 million over 5 years, $7.5 million up front. The new contract makes Anderson the highest paid back in the league based on annual salary. Well, it may not be the most beautiful critter in the lake, but the crawdad may be one of the tastiest. They call them freshwater lobster. Here's Doug Miller.
Although I can't see any crayfish around. Have you seen any?
Even if you didn't have crawfish hanging on the bill of your cap, it was certainly no problem finding big crayfish on the Soldier Creek side of Strawberry this week. Walk any shoreline on this lake and you can see the big ones. And the sport of fishing for these big dads is growing.
It's just something different, you know. It's something that most people in Utah, a long way from the ocean, don't get a real taste of seafood. And this is as close as we have, the closest that we've got to lobster. Anyway.
Freshwater lobster.
That's right.
Work at it for about an hour and you could gather bucketfuls of big dads, and some of these critters are real hogs. You can almost hear that music when this big boy walks by. Da-da-da-da, dad to the bone. You can use traps like these, but a plain old chicken leg tied to a string is much more fun.
The best technique is just to reach past it, scoop it, get the leg and everything, shake them off, throw it back out, let the next group come in, and if you put it...
Many of the lakes in Utah have good populations of crayfish. All you need is a fishing license and a chicken leg to have some of this summer fun. Saturday night on Outdoors, the real payoff when it comes to crawdadding. All you need to catch and cook up a feast of these freshwater lobsters. That's Saturday night just after Sports Beat. Doug Miller, KSL Outdoors.
All right, thanks a lot, Doug. One score to tell you about PCL action. The Buzz trailing Las Vegas right now 14-1. That game is in the 7th inning. Dick and Ruth will be back with more news, but first, all the scores from the big leagues.
Apart a little bit. That's incredible.
The tornado made for an even more memorable day for one bride and groom. The pair had just finished exchanging vows in the Salt Lake Temple and were posing for pictures on Temple Square when the funnel cloud swept through downtown. The group waited out the raging wind and pouring rain in the shelter of the temple's doorway as the groom and a few of the attendants sheltered the bride, of course, in her dress from the shower. Despite the severity of the quick storm, the wedding party was unharmed, if a little bit tattered.
When they can tell the grandkids and the kids.
That's right.
And everybody else. Finally tonight, another natural phenomenon which captured the world's attention today. The last total solar eclipse of the millennium. In England, there were about 2 minutes of total darkness. The eclipse swept across the Earth at 1,500 miles an hour from Europe into Central Asia before sinking at sunset in the Bay of Bengal. The next total solar eclipse will be in the year 2001 over southern Africa.
That's quite a sight itself.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget the half-hour special on today's tornado. Eyewitness to a Tornado is coming next.
Stay tuned for that.
We'll also have the latest tomorrow morning for you on Eyewitness News.
You are watching KSL 5. This is an Eyewitness News special report.
It appeared to be just another summer thunderstorm, but suddenly, without warning, a tornado dropped from the sky and tore through the heart of Salt Lake City. From businesses west of Salt Lake to the Delta Center, and then on to the avenues, the twister chewed up everything that happened to be in its way. Welcome back now to this special report, Eyewitness to the Salt Lake tornado.
Well, it happened almost too quickly to be scary. For a moment, it was just another dark summertime squall. People paid little attention. And then, in an instant, it was the unthinkable, a tornado. And those people, they had to find themselves in harm's way.
Keith McCord begins our coverage of the deadly storm. Keith?
Dick, you and I have lived here a long time, but I never dreamed that I'd come to work and then have to run to the basement of the building to hide from a tornado of all things here in Utah. A lot of us did just that at 12:53 today.
In less than 5 minutes, 300 seconds, the landscape changed. Buildings seemed to explode. Cars and trucks tossed like toys. Trees ripped from the ground. Even stately structures like the Wyndham Hotel and the Delta Center couldn't escape the force of the 100-plus mile-per-hour gusts.
It just got real windy and the hail started coming down. I looked behind us and all debris, and we started seeing explosions over here. It hit the Delta Center here, and all you could see was debris flying, swirling in the air.
The Memory Grove area of City Creek Canyon looks completely different tonight. And then there's this eerie scene. In the upper avenues, in what looks like a dollhouse at first glance, you can see people walking through a home where the roof was taken off cleanly. Other homes were also hit hard.
I tried calling up here and the phone just rang and rang and rang, and then a neighbor called and said that my dad's house had been hit by the tornado. And gratefully that they weren't here. It's just hard to see this happen. It was a beautiful home.
One of the hardest hit areas was across from the Triad Center at the site of the summer outdoor retailer show. One of the huge pavilions, 400 feet long and 130 feet wide, was shredded. Millions of dollars worth of merchandise destroyed. And dozens of people preparing their exhibit booths for tomorrow's opening day were injured. After surveying the damaged areas, Governor Leavitt declared a state of emergency.
Hard to imagine that nature could have selected a more direct line at a more devastating moment.
It's breaking apart.
The forecast called for some possible afternoon thunder showers, but no one was prepared for this. Ask anyone who was in the downtown area. Most will say they didn't believe what they were seeing at first. After all, we just don't see many tornadoes here. This one was powerful, violent.
I was in this building right here and it looked like a fire was coming that way. I went to look at it and then I noticed it was a tornado and I tried to move and get out in my truck. I just ducked down in my truck. It came by and knocked all the windows out. And we just started running. I didn't know where to go. People were just running everywhere. And so we ran across the street and just grabbed a tree. And my legs were in the air at one point. I was just holding on as hard as I could.
Some scary stories out there from witnesses. You know, this is the second tornado to hit Salt Lake City. The first one, not nearly as bad as this one, back in 1968, also during the month of August. And one woman we heard describing the tornado this afternoon, she said, you know, I felt like I was in the movie The Wizard of Oz. That's how weird all this was today. Dick, back to you.
It was that. All right, Keith, very good. Thanks.
There was one fatality in today's tornado. Alan Crandy, a resident of Las Vegas, was inside the outdoor expo tents, setting up booths for the convention when the storm hit. Metal supports fell on him as he tried to run. He died en route to the hospital. A family friend was with his wife when she got the news.
But for some reason, Jan knew. I don't know. I was mad at her because of the way she was being when she was watching the news. It was almost like she knew. She saw those tents and immediately she knew.
Crandy leaves behind a wife, stepson, and 2 young daughters.
And tonight, dozens of victims remain hospitalized, being treated for their injuries, which range from critical to less serious. News specialist Stacy Butler joins us from LDS Hospital with more on the victims' conditions. Stacy.
Dick, most agree, considering the velocity of this twister and the debris that was thrown so rapidly. The injuries were few, but even still, hundreds of doctors and nurses in area hospitals responded. They were ready and poised. For minutes today, heavy debris and shards of glass slammed into buildings and cars and struck unfortunate bystanders who didn't find shelter in time. This woman was hit by a brick where the tornado first touched down.
You know, stuff started flying around and I didn't have time to get inside. I kind of dove in the corner back here. I was out on the patio and the roof came down on me.
That woman and hundreds of others like her were injured, but not badly enough to be treated at a hospital. A handful of people at the outdoor retailer show weren't as lucky.
And I saw rolling cars all over me and all kind of things in the air, like kayaks and woods and glass and everything.
Next thing I know is like I got pulled off really hard by the wind or anything like, and I just hung up. Otherwise, I know I'd be gone somewhere in Salt Lake now.
All told, today's twister killed 1 person and injured dozens of others. The University of Utah treated 12 patients, 2 of which were injured critically. Salt Lake Regional Medical Center treated 22 people. All are listed in stable condition. And LDS Hospital treated 11 patients. 3 were injured seriously. At LDS and University Hospital, doctors and nurses were on mass patient influx disaster alert status. Now that means every doctor and nurse in the trauma unit was called in.
Potential for a lot of patients being hurt at the same time was here more than any other time in the past. And as a result of that, they had probably hundreds of people here in the emergency room.
That's right, 200 additional staff showed up at LDS Hospital alone. Now, most of these folks weren't even on call. They heard the call for help, dropped what they were doing, and drove immediately to work. Reporting live from LDS Hospital, I'm Stacey Butler. Now back to you.
Stacey, thank you. The Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office has set up a special emergency hotline for information about today's event and those in the way of that tornado. Please call 533-0533.
The storm battered most every exhibit at the Outdoor Retailer Show in downtown Salt Lake. You're looking at a live picture. Tonight, the city fenced off the block and will let the vendors know which ones can patch up and go on with the show. Cleanup began right after emergency crews took care of the people who were hurt. The governor got the ball rolling for cleanup money and declared a state of emergency. Professional crews and volunteers also got to work in the neighborhoods clearing away trees and other debris. Power crews say they're being very careful to restore power to circuits with known damage and will have to take their time.
The damage is quite extensive. Many trees and wires down in backyards. We want to make sure that we're not endangering the public safety.
They expect to have all of the main circuitry back at full operation within the next day, but it may take a bit longer for some individual homes where the wires were ripped right off the walls.
They're picking up the pieces as well in the avenues tonight. The tornado swept out of downtown and into homes and streets there. The damage is especially severe in the upper avenues. News specialist Shelley Osterloh is at Binion Elementary, a shelter that has been set up for avenues residents who can't go home there. Shelley.
Yeah, this is a shelter for people who can't go home, but you know, there are not really very many people here, only about 10 tonight. That's because in this community, so many families and neighbors and friends open up their homes to people who are in need. And you know, while we've been standing out here, we've had car after car, people come by, drop off goods, food, whatever they can contribute. There's some people going in right now. This place has beds and has all sorts of supplies, whatever someone would need for emergency care for just a little while. There were 120 homes damaged, 34 of them uninhabitable tonight. That means, of course, that there are a lot of people who need help, but there are various places around the community. Several homes lost their roofs. People like Luana Cellini lost more. She bought her dream home just 3 weeks ago.
They kept talking about the avenues, and I kept thinking, I don't feel good about it. And so I came home.
So you actually had a sense of this, huh?
Uh-huh. I did, really. I did. I just knew, and I thought, but this is, I love this place. I mean, I don't, you know.
And she wasn't the only one who lost almost everything in the wind.
Emotions are really high. It's hard because I grew up in the house. And it's just hard to see that all your memories are gone now.
It's just hard to see this happen. It was a beautiful home.
This long-time home of Lamar Smith is among those that took the brunt of Salt Lake's twister, and strangely, just a few feet away, damage was minimal. The tornado seemed to jump and twist, sweeping a swath across the avenues, missing some homes, destroying others. Much of the area is closed to traffic, not only because they don't want spectators up there, but because hundreds of trees were uprooted and tossed into the street. Crews immediately started cutting huge limbs and removing the shattered trees. Many of the people who showed up to do that work were volunteers, tree companies that just came up to help. Tomorrow, many of the Avenue's residents will return in the daylight and see what kind of personal treasures can be saved. No doubt there will also be many volunteers who will be up there to help with the cleanup, help contribute in whatever way they can. This is that kind of a community. That process is certainly already started. And no doubt there will be many insurance adjusters up there tomorrow to see what they can do to help people in need. Back to you.
All right, Shelley, indeed there will be. Well, today's twister struck without any warning.
It did indeed, and meteorologist Lynn Randolph joins us now. Lynn, is this the typical setup for your tornado? I mean, as compared with where we usually see tornadoes?
Yeah, like in the Midwest. No, not anything like that at all. So I thought we'd just start with this special now, showing you how they develop in the Midwest. Cold front comes in, warm, moist air usually streams in off the Gulf of Mexico, way upstairs, around 20,000, 30,000 feet. The air is cold and dry. Well, those two air masses collide, they mix together, and if we look at it in this perspective, the warm air rises up as the cold air comes in and sinks. Now, when that happens, we get a spiraling, or can get a spiraling effect in the parent cloud or the thunderstorm that may or may not generate a tornado. So it starts out as a funnel. When it touches the ground, it becomes a tornado. That's not what happened today. Yeah, we had a tornado, but it didn't develop like that. Here's the scene at 11:40 this morning. All right? We were cloudy over the valley. We had some showers over on the west side. By noon, two very large storm complexes were developing, one north of Interstate 80, one south of Tooele, okay? And they were very, very large. Now, this is important because there's something in the atmosphere that can happen that we call bomb genesis, and today, I believe, was an example of that. As those two big cells went across, a little piece broke off, and when it came into the Salt Lake Valley and launched right over Salt Lake City, and a thunderstorm built to huge proportions. And when it did that, the tornado dropped out, the biggest we've ever had. Now, graphically, here's how it works. And I think this is a little easier to see than looking at the Doppler. There's the big storm complex over the south end of the Great Salt Lake, with the southern one, Tooele and south, all right? Now, here's what happened. As they went across, a little piece, see this, broke off and went between the two major systems. As it crossed the Oquirrh Mountains, it began to soar. The top came right on up. Then as the two major systems went across, that air you saw converged. And when that air meets, it can only go one direction. It went up, and it went up underneath that little one, and it drove it to altitudes that probably it couldn't achieve by itself, and a tornado dropped out of it. And it was this tornado. This is the beginning of that F2 as it fell from the sky at about 11:50 or 11:55 this morning, or 12:55 this morning. And it came right on out. See it developing here, reaching on down, reaching on. And then when it finally hit the ground and began to develop some energy and covered a damage path a block or 2 blocks wide, it looked like this. And then it reached F2 intensity. Now, F2 intensity is really a major tornado. And this home video has very graphic evidence of the forces involved. This vehicle was just rocked back and forth on its axles. I don't know why it didn't tip over. And then as the winds went, but now here's how tornadoes work. They go up and down. They don't just cut a straight path. They oscillate side to side, up and down. They'll tilt forward, they'll tilt back to the left and right so they can hit a house, skip a house, jump 3 streets, go over a city block, jump over the hill. They do this routinely. And now I want to show you how tornadoes have affected the state of Utah. We're going to take you back from 1995 to about 1950. Some of the all the tornadoes now by county. There were 7 in Box Elder, 4 in Cache. Now this is from 1950 to 1995. 7 have hit in Davis County, 9 in Salt Lake. The most have been in Salt Lake County. 5 in Tooele. So, well, we're going to change that. That's Utah County. In Uinta County, 4. As we look farther south, 6 in Wayne. They get a lot of tornadoes there, relatively speaking. 5 in Emery County and 4 in San Pete. All other Utah counties have been 3 or less going back to 1950. So by months, here's how it works out. 3 in March, 4 in April. But look at the peak here. I want to get down to this. August. We get more in August. Yeah, we get a lot in May, but we get most of them in August. So here we are. Time of day. Well, once we get to about 11, it really picks up. There have been 10 at 11 o'clock, 7 at noon, 8 at 1 o'clock, and so that's right where we were. And then on the intensity scale, it goes F0 to F5. Well, ours was an F2 with peak winds of 157 miles an hour, 113 to 1. So the last tornado to hit Salt Lake City was August 14th back in 1968, and it hit at almost the same time. Total damage for all tornadoes back to 1950, about $250,000 to $500,000, and there were 10 injuries, no fatalities. Today's tornado, early estimates in the millions. We'll find out as the days go on, and there have been at least 49 injuries. So today's tornado exceeded the combined damage of all Utah tornadoes in terms of damage and injuries all the way back to 1950, Ruth and Dick. Hope this never, ever happens again. All right?
Yeah. All right. Len, good lesson for us all. Thanks so much. Still ahead on this special Eyewitness News report, we'll show you what will be open and what will remain closed in the Salt Lake area tomorrow.
We'll also hear from the people who lived through this tornado, and many may be wondering, how will Utahns begin the rebuilding process?
We'll pose that question and more to Governor Mike Leavitt, who will join us live as this special Eyewitness News report continues.
watching KSL-5. This is an Eyewitness News special report.
Well, the storm may be over, but there is definitely a lot of work ahead.
And it's already underway. Repair crews and insurance adjusters are making the rounds, doing what they can, even at this late hour. Everybody is, of course, doing their very best to handle this difficult situation.
News specialist Karen Scullen is live now with more on that. Karen?
Well, Dick and Ruth, I'm sure many people are probably wondering at this point what daylight will bring. And there is some good news when it comes to insurance if you own a home or have a vehicle. But driving around downtown Salt Lake City will definitely be tricky for a while. The damage to many homes is devastating. For many, it's hard to even look at a home torn in pieces. But insurance agents advise those affected to take a close look and prevent any further damage if possible.
If you have a hole in your roof and it's raining, if you can reasonably go and cover that hole to prevent further damage, that's what we would ask them to try and do.
Mydell says call your agent tonight or tomorrow, but don't worry too much. He says the majority of homeowners' policies will cover tornado damage. And if you're one of the many who had a vehicle crushed by the twister, it will probably be covered by comprehensive insurance, so it shouldn't affect your premiums. Now, if you haven't had a home or car damaged but are still waiting for power, Utah Power knows where the outages are, and crews are working hard on repairs. Phone service is in the process of being restored as well, with only spotty service outages still remaining. U.S. West asks that you limit your phone use tonight to only necessary calls. Speaking of necessary, if it's not necessary to go downtown, don't.
300 west to 6 north, then you can get on the freeway.
At this point, many people are being detoured as many of the major streets are blocked while cleanup continues. Salt Lake City police say their intention is to have the roads open by morning. And they certainly are making an effort to do that. I can tell you 3rd West going north and south just opened a few minutes ago, but still there are some road closures that you need to know about. North Temple, 300 West to State Street will be closed for about 2 to 3 days. That's because of the crane that was hit by the twister there in front of Assembly Hall. A dangerous situation, I'm told, by Salt Lake City Police. Also on South Temple between 200 and 300 West, that will be closed tomorrow. That's in front of the Wyndham Hotel. And as far as power outages go, 16th to 18th Avenue between 6th and 8th East. They should be without power probably through tomorrow. However, Utah Power has recently said that they hope to restore power to everyone by tomorrow morning. If you don't have power by tomorrow morning, you need to call a phone number. That number is 888-221-7070. Again, 888-221-7070. And if you work in the downtown area, definitely a good idea to call ahead to find out if the business is open. It's unclear if any businesses at this point will be closed because of the situation down here, and of course the road closures as well. Reporting live, I'm Karen Scullen. Back to you.
All right, Karen, thanks for the update. Governor Leavitt today declared a state of emergency in Salt Lake City. The governor will join us live to tell us more about that. We'll be right back.
Hard to imagine that nature could have selected a more direct line at a more devastating moment.
Governor Leavitt toured the tornado damage firsthand today and joined us now live here on the set.
An extremely long day for you. Thanks for staying up, Governor, with us and being here late tonight. You were able to tour and get a bird's eye view from a helicopter. What are your thoughts at the end of this long day of devastation when you think about our city and our state?
I think I'm struck by the memory of how calm it was 30 minutes after the tornado passed through Salt Lake City. I found myself walking up State Street on my way to the Capitol because the trees that were down and you couldn't drive there. There were people emerging from their homes in a state of shock, standing on their porches in just a state of disbelief. I will long remember flying in a helicopter over homes and seeing neighbors converge on homes with their roof off, seeing people standing in their bedrooms trying to collect their lives exposed to the world because the roof was gone. Mm-hmm. This is a moment in our history I suspect we'll all remember, the tornado of '99.
Well, I heard you talking about your walk back to the Capitol this afternoon on KSL Radio. You sounded stunned, but you don't have time to be stunned. You're the governor. You've got to get the wheels moving. And what did you do next?
Well, I actually walked directly from the downtown to the state capitol, straight through the rotunda of the Capitol and over to the command center for the comprehensive emergency management where I declared them open. And then we set up immediately a command center downtown. I had conversations with James Lee Witt, who is the head of the comprehensive emergency management for the FEMA, as they're referred, and told them we had a problem and we were going to need some federal help. They immediately dispatched people. I called in all of the state agencies, and within about 20 minutes we had people at every station. The system worked very well. Our citizens worked well together. Everyone cooperated. Within 2 hours we had transported 40 injured people to the hospital. The cleanup had begun, and we all began putting our lives back together. It was I think surreal was a word you used, Ruth, at the break. I think that's exactly what it is. But tomorrow the sun will come up and we will go about the process of carrying on our lives.
And those FEMA teams are expected here tomorrow. What are we hoping that the federal government can do for us?
Well, we don't know yet. The first thing is an estimate of the damage. We have asked them to send specialists in who have experience in estimating damage. We have the National Guard tonight with a command center open. If they need to be deployed, they can be. We have over 300 law enforcement officers out who are securing the areas that have been damaged. We have shelters set up at Benyon Elementary and other places. Red Cross is in hand. They are sending in specialized response teams that will arrive tomorrow. The community is rallying. It's all about getting our lives, digging out and ready to move forward.
So how will your day start tomorrow? Or has it started?
Will it end tonight?
This was not exactly the way I had intended my day for today. Who knows what tomorrow will bring.
So sudden. So, I mean, I don't recall anything ever. You know, at least you have a little bit of a warning usually, and then boom,
well,
this one you didn't.
There was, I guess, an hour or two where it clouded up. Yeah. But it was a routine August day, and within 2 hours, it was a warm, windless, calm August day, and there was destruction all around us.
Yes, it was. Governor Levitt, thank you so much for coming down at this late hour. We appreciate it so much. Good luck tomorrow.
The strength, unpredictability, and terror of a tornado is best told by the people who lived through one.
Indeed. Hear their story coming next.
You are watching KSL-5. This is an Eyewitness News special report.
It was hitting the power lines, and we saw power lines kind of snap like toothpicks.
I mean, it was just complete havoc. People coming in completely bloody, and it was a mess. And there's reports of people dead. It's crazy.
I'm okay. We're really lucky.
Lucky and unlucky. Salt Lake is unlucky it ever happened, but quite fortunate in a way. The damage and loss of life wasn't greater.
News specialist John Daly was one of the lucky ones. The tornado narrowly missed his apartment. He was inside when it hit. John.
Dick and Ruth, in the Midwest, they say the sky turns green just before a tornado hit. Well, that's what I saw when I looked out the window of my apartment this afternoon. Then, of course, the flying debris, the tremendous damage, and others saw much worse.
A tornado in downtown Salt Lake. A once-in-a-lifetime thing? Try once in a millennium.
I was right underneath it, eh? It was like being hit by millions of firecrackers, just exploding all over.
The first reaction, hey, that looks like a tornado. Then, it's holy cow, that is a tornado.
And I looked up and there was just a whole bunch of people standing there. And people like, a tornado's coming, a tornado's coming. And right there, I looked up and I seen it coming. I just took off running.
I was in this building right here and it looked like a fire was coming that way. I went to look at it and then I noticed it was a tornado and I tried to move and get out in my truck. I just ducked down in my truck. It came by and knocked all the windows out.
But it was very wicked. It was lifting cars up.
Certainly looks like it could have been a tornado, but it was something I've never seen before.
Police officer, it's in my car. Get it out of here.
In the aftermath of the tornado of '99, chaos and confusion.
I want everybody this way. Everybody this way.
And I saw it just form and the funnel come all the way down and touch the ground. And then I got on my radio and started screaming for my crew and to get everybody out.
This is mine.
You just at the stoplight?
No, I was here. We seen it coming. I stopped it. I threw my daughter across the street. Across my seat, covered her. Some guy went down here. We watched that.
For the survivors, powerful emotions, pain, fear, and disbelief.
We had a tornado. The wind came up real fast, and you don't expect tornadoes here. I just thought it was a real strong windstorm, and then at some point, you know, stuff started flying around, and I didn't have time to get inside. I kind of dove in the corner back here. I was out on the patio, and the roof came down on me.
So we ran across the street and just grabbed a tree, and my legs were in the air at one point. I was just holding on as hard as I could.
Not in Utah, no. I've been here for 27.5 years, born and raised, and I've never saw a tornado.
And just imagine what it must have been like over there at the LDS Church Assembly Hall construction site when that crane came toppling down on those hundreds of workers as they were working right nearby. Of course, the scariest part for everybody today is seeing your life pass before your eyes. That's the way I felt. That's the way thousands of people in downtown Salt Lake City felt today. What an incredible scene. How else can you describe it? Ruth, Dick?
John Daly, indeed. We're glad you're okay. You take care of yourself tonight. Well, we thank you for staying up late with us this evening. We will leave you tonight with images of an event we have never before seen in the Mountain West, probably will not see again, and at least we won't forget.
It was a lesson delivered by an angry sky, a lesson about how fragile we are when nature turns violent. In seconds, our little world, which is usually obscure from this sort of thing, was turned upside down. Quiet sections of the avenues were re-landscaped. The tops of homes were ripped open. Lives were changed. One was lost. It was also a lesson in perseverance and survival. Spontaneously, people poured into the streets to help their neighbors and to remove the tons of scattered debris. Tomorrow, we'll do the same, because those who have been through things like this, no matter how devastating they are, know there is always another day.
Hard to imagine that nature could have selected a more direct line at a more devastating moment.
Oh! We just started running. I didn't know where to go.
Dude, people are going to be hurt, man. We got to get in that tent. To see this happen.